we really just put ourselves in this box of having to be perfect. And we think that, if we don't check all the boxes, then we're not ready. And I'm here to tell you that, just like when you put your first product out there, when you launched your first episode of your podcast, when you got your first client, you didn't have everything perfect and all figured out. You learn along the way, and so these corporations understand that.
Welcome to the Networking with Michelle podcast, the show dedicated to providing you with life strategies with a little bit of entrepreneur advice. Here we believe in the Jim Rohn quote, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Hey everyone, I got good news for y'all. Today's special guest is Quiana Murray. She's a business and transformation expert helping us entrepreneurs learn smart ways to go from break even to bankroll and get sponsorships for our business, events, and podcasts. Quiana, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me.
Look, I'm excited. Other people excited. We about to talk about this money, how to get to this money, how we can secure the bag.
Yes.
No, but before we get to that point, tell us about you. What was your transformation?
Sure. Well, I started my business journey as someone who knew that I was just meant to work for myself. I had jobs and things like that. And, you always just have this nagging feeling like, I know I'm not supposed to be doing this. I'm supposed to be doing something else. So what I decided to do way back in college, I started getting feeling the biz owner bug. And so I decided to start hosting events at my school. And so this was before I knew that there was this thing called sponsorship. And so I just called, the local radio shows, local businesses, and just asked them if they would be willing to, send someone out, basically to entertain us. So to speak or perform. And then also, just to create an ongoing program for our on-campus students. And so it really took off from there. And over the years, I kept going back and, I formally learned sponsorship. I actually learned it. And then from there, I just started incorporating it with my clients as they would come to me for business services, when they would say, okay, yeah, I'm ready to start events, or I'm ready to launch this big, program or podcast. And so I started helping them do the exact same thing. And so for me, it went from a situation of, a need to then being something that I just fell in love with and wanted to help others do. And I learned, from that experience, I made a lot of mistakes along the way, even with myself, jumping out there like, yeah, I'm just going to start a business and, quitting my job and having nothing lined up, and I had to just get myself on track. And so, I jumped back into work so I could have some, money coming in. And then I set up a plan and then really strategically launched my business. And from there, there's been no looking back.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that. I am curious, when you decided to get a job, was that a job within the event space or corporate to kind of help you with the corporate sponsorships? Was there any type of tie-in or maybe some nuggets?
Not at all. Not at all. I went back to good old faithful, which was, my master's level education is in human resources. And along the way, I just developed a love of budgeting and finance. And so I went back to what I knew, which was, okay, I know I can get a job in HR or I can get a job in finance. And finance came through before HR. So it really wasn't. But it's kind of funny because, when you're meant to do something, those opportunities present themselves. So, even though I was in a finance role, I still, whenever there was something, an event needing to be planned, a conference, something like that, I always found myself as either leading the team or part of the team.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I found those ways to continue to incorporate my knowledge of the events and sponsorship industry in my day job.
Yeah, because sometimes I think when we're in it, we don't see those transferable skills.
Exactly.
But I do know a lot of my listeners, we have the corporate background, we have the side hustle, and I'm like, your corporate job serves a purpose in
I'm
your
telling you.
business. So
Yes.
like, don't lose sight of that. That
Yes.
Excel spreadsheet you're tired of looking at,
Right.
it's going to help you.
Right. Hello. Yes. Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
But I think, because I have a finance background as well, but I would
Mm-hmm.
like to think with your finance and the HR, like, what these corporations are looking for, especially
Absolutely.
the numeric piece. So can you talk about that a bit?
Sure. Well, here's the thing, when it comes to especially the sponsorship industry, you need to be able to understand why corporations spend the money they spend,
Mm.
how they spend the money they spend, and, assign meaning to it. And, that was always the part that I liked because, even though I, of course, wasn't on the marketing team, I knew the type of things that they were looking for because I could see what they were buying, where they were spending their money. And so I was then able to take that and say, okay, well, look, they're spending XYZ on each, campaign. And, during the campaign, they're paying for these individual pieces. Well, what if they partnered with a small business who has all of that already ready to go? And it would not only save them money, but then it gets them right in front of the customer that they're hoping to snag, by watching a commercial or seeing an ad somewhere. And so, it really did tie together. And as far as the HR piece, with human resources, I always tell people this when they come to me and they're brand spanking new to sponsorship. Even though you are pitching a corporation, what you're really doing is you're forming a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So, think about how relationships are built when you're sitting in a cubicle. It's going to be the same way that you're going to try to build a relationship when you're sitting in your home office or, your corporate space trying to build a relationship with that person at that company. It's the same thing. People want you to be helpful. They want you to be relevant. They want you to be able to bring to them those things that they're looking for so that it makes their job easy. And so, by putting that all together, it really makes it clear for people to see that, okay, you know what? Yes, I am pitching, let's say Visa, but actually I'm talking to Janet sitting in, the branding office, and so when you look at it that way and you strip away the, intimidation that, saying Visa can bring, and you just focus on Janet,
Yeah.
then it becomes so real and it becomes much more manageable in your mind and easier for you to actually take steps to actually build a relationship.
I love that. Yeah. So why do you think people do struggle with the concept of gaining a sponsor? Because we're so focused on the brand of the corporation versus the individual.
Yes, I think that's it. And I think also because a lot of times, and let's be real, when you start your business, you assume that everyone is expecting you to have it all right. And so you take that same assumption when you start with sponsorship because you assume that this company that has billions of dollars in revenue is going to expect you to come and have all your stuff together. And that's just really not true. What they love about you is the fact that you're raw, that you're new, that you're different. Visa can't go on Facebook and, really engage in political conversation or really, take a stand for a special cause that means something to them. Why? Because their advertisers and their partners will pull right on out. But guess what? You can. And they like that because those people that you're speaking to who are also passionate, those are the people they want to, get a credit card from them. So guess what? You become very, very meaningful to them. And so a lot of times, we really just put ourselves in this box of having to be perfect. And we think that, if we don't check all the boxes, then we're not ready. And I'm here to tell you that, just like when you put your first product out there, when you launched your first episode of your podcast, when you got your first client, you didn't have everything perfect and all figured out. You learn along the way, and so these corporations understand that, before they were bringing in billions in revenue, they got that first customer and, they did the same jumping around, happy, excited dance that you doing, So don't think that you have to have everything perfect. And I think that's the biggest hang up, because people think they have to have everything perfect. They don't even get started.
Yeah. Now, before we get into more of the strategies and tactics, and I like how you said, focus on the person, the individual that holds the title as a brand strategist.
Yes.
Whatever the relevant title may be for your industry. Do these people, do they like cold calls, cold emails? Because if you don't have a relationship, what is the best way to start the pitch?
Okay. Yes. And that's a great question, because, I always say, and I use this example a lot, when you send someone a proposal and they don't know who you are, it's just like standing in line at the grocery store and someone stands like way too close to you and you can like feel them breathing on the back of your neck. I mean, it makes your skin crawl.
Personal space.
You know what I'm saying? Right. It drives you insane. So it's the same thing in the virtual space. And when you're building these relationships, the best thing to do always, always, always is identify someone at the company and just, contact them and say, you know what, here's what I'm planning. I'm planning an event. I would love to see, if, Visa is even a fit for this, if this is even, an audience that you would want to even connect with. Do you have 5 minutes so I can ask you a few questions? When you do that, first of all, one, you've already let them know that you're coming to them for their expertise. You're not coming to sell them something. You're coming to learn from them. That's key, because everything from that point on is going to be based on the information that that person gives you. And when you don't have that initial conversation, just reaching out on LinkedIn even and just saying, can I get on the phone with you for 5 minutes just to find out a little bit more about, what your goals are and, what you're planning for the upcoming year or next year, whenever your event's going to be. That is golden, because that tells them that, one, you are respecting their time because you've asked them first. Mm-hmm. It tells them that you are more interested in making this a win-win than a money or cash grab for yourself. And then not only that, but it starts to build a relationship where the person doesn't feel like it's a bait and switch, like, oh, you're just being nice to me because you want something. And so the same thing can be done, whether it's an event, whether it's a podcast, whether it's, your signature program and you're just looking to have sponsors behind you as you launch it. It doesn't matter. The bottom line is to just really go to that person, be open, be honest, and let them do the talking. Ask, have your questions formulated, but let them do the talking.
I love that. One, I believe in the power of the ask.
Yes.
Because it's worked with me. But also with that, when you have the confidence to ask, it does remove out the assumption, because we can have an actual conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Now, I want to talk about diversity, right?
Sure.
I believe I'm Black, Black. Okay. I definitely cater. My listeners, are predominantly African American millennials between the age, I'll just say 25 to 40.
Yep.
Educated, bachelor's degree, even post, graduate degrees or whatever.
Yep.
It gets tricky with the diversity component.
Yes.
Is that something we should leverage? I have an all Black audience, or I struggle with this question because if I'm being candid, when, in my opinion, with the corporate finance background, I've been in the white spaces where they say, oh, we're diverse. And yes.
And they're not.
But see, the thing is, when they consider diversity, they're like, oh, well, this person is German, and this
Yes, yes,
this
yes.
this
But they
person,
never pass a certain hue. I get it. I get exactly what you're saying. You
you
forget
know,
I'm from there.
this,
I
this
get it.
person went to Harvard while this one went to state school, and look, we are all together in one room working.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You know, here's the thing about sponsorship.
Mm-hmm.
Sponsorship is one of those areas where there's still a lot of education to be done. And
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, I tell minorities, I tell women all the time, leverage what you are and what you have and
Mm-hmm.
who you are. Because at the end of the day, everybody thinks they're diverse until they run that marketing campaign that gets a whole lot of pushback on Facebook and on Twitter and across social media. Then it's like, oh, well, maybe we should have had somebody brown on the campaign who would have
Yeah.
said, oh,
Yeah.
no, no, don't do this,
Yeah.
But a lot of times that is what you need to be able to say, and you need to be able to say it with confidence.
Wow.
Many corporations, they think they're diverse until they realize that Black women aren't spending money with them. I mean, let's be real. We spend money, okay? We spend money and we create trends. And so if we aren't catching on or we aren't talking and giving buzz to your, whatever your current campaign is, you're not going to make nearly as much as you'd make if you had one of us in the room telling you how to, pitch or promote to us. And so I always say leverage that, because at the end of the day, and I've been in meetings where I've said, where people have said, well, we have diversity, we have people from all over the world and this and that. And I'm like, okay, so is there any, and I say, is there anyone brown in the room?
Yeah.
And they don't think about it that way because they're thinking that, oh, well, yeah, sure, someone from Germany is going to have a very different perspective than someone from, London. Yeah, absolutely. But guess what? They can still, until they open their mouth, there's still a white person in the world,
Right.
And I tell people that all the time. I'm like, look, let's be real. I'm trying to help you make the most out of your marketing campaign. And I want you to understand that if you don't have anyone who looks like me in your commercial, I'm not going to see myself there.
Yeah.
And sure, you may get some people who buy just because they're brand loyal. There are people who will only buy a certain brand. You'll get that. But every day, someone else gets a job, someone else turns 18, someone else is deciding what their brands are going to be. And you're going to miss those people if you don't have people who they can feel like they can connect with. And, and also there have been times when I've been in a room and I said, look, the angry Black woman trope is not going to work. We are outpacing everyone in education.
Business.
We are not angry. It doesn't take anger to get multiple degrees. It doesn't take anger to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It takes determination, drive, and a positive attitude. So I don't see myself as her. I don't see myself as her. And so these are things that, they may not want to hear at first, but a true marketing, branding person will say, okay, you know what? I can acknowledge I didn't think of that, or I can acknowledge that, you know what? Yeah, we might have some work to do in this area. And it's not going to happen overnight, and that's one of the things that I like to, really make sure people understand. It's not going to happen overnight. But the more that we start standing for seeing ourselves represented in ways that we want to be represented, the more companies are going to take notice. I mean, let's be real. Just look at Black Panther.
Yeah.
No one thought that a positive movie about Blacks in technology. Oh my gosh, no one sees that. Excuse me, who's got the most degrees right now? It's us, and that's something that, I am very, very vocal about, because I'm like, look, you know what? If we are the CIO, we are, the person who's deciding what technologies the company is going to adopt. So please don't try to, think that we're not going to see ourselves as these people. We absolutely do. We live it every day, and so this is that example that, is a great time for sponsorship seekers right now, because you can point back to that. I mean, it's so recent, like literally like last month. So you can point back and say, here's a good example of that. No one in Hollywood thought this would sell.
Right. And we showed up and showed out.
I'm here to tell you.
When it came to
okay?
Black Panther. So, and then the movie was actually released today on DVD, Blu-ray, and all that.
I saw that. And it's still in our theater around here.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I love it. And I really appreciate your honesty, because I know that's been a challenging question that I've encountered early on, and it does become touchy. So I just appreciate your honesty. And there's another lady I interviewed maybe last year. And I think as a Black person, I have been brought to look at diversity based off of race and ethnicity. But when I was listening to her talk, it's like she was raised to understand diversity as far as demographics and socioeconomic classification.
And there are, and that's what's different, because there are, I think it also depends on your culture, because if you go to some nations, it really is based on socioeconomic status. But in this country, it's multifaceted. It's not just your socioeconomic status.
Right.
It's also, what you look like. I mean, let's be real. There are times when, we're always so, our jaw drops when we hear that Oprah was discriminated against. Oprah is a Black woman. Who is surprised by that? Like, I'm like always like, okay.
At the end of the day.
Yes. At the end of the day, when she's not all made up and she doesn't have, her people with her, she is still a Black woman out in the world.
Absolutely. I want to talk about brand loyalty, because I'm one of those people. I've bought 2 Toyotas. My mom has bought 2 to 3 Toyotas.
Yeah, my family. It's funny. I've never bought a Toyota, but my family is a Toyota family, and it's funny. My husband's family is a Honda family. I'm like, look, this is the clash of the Titans here.
But I also know when I open up Essence magazine, they're on the inside cover.
Yes, they are.
Black Enterprise Conference, they're there.
Yep.
And just a couple other things. I've somehow brand loyalty has been ingrained in me at a young age without me even realizing it.
Yes.
So when it comes to sponsorships, do you think that's where we should start? Like the products and services that I use, I should approach those companies?
Yes.
Or should it just be like, let me get this money?
No. Here's the thing. There's 2 points, and I love that you made them. The first one is, look at what it is that you use. Because here's the thing. If you like something, you trust something, then a lot of times your people, I always say this, your community tends to be, it may not be exactly you like 100%, but it's probably like 80% you.
Yeah.
So if you find these things reliable and worth putting your money behind, a lot of times, unless your demographic is, your community is completely opposite you, a lot of times they are going to feel the same way. So you want to get brands that are, showing that they care about the things you care about, and you want to get brands that are going to be an easy, I don't want to say an easy sell, but an easy fit within your community. Like it's really hard to get a brand that has never, ever done anything with diversity. They don't feel like it's important to really come into your community and not try to, project that same thought process on your people, So it's better to get brands that are already seeing the value of your community and bring them in, because they're not going to try to take over. They're going to try to really be there to learn and to, create a sense of harmony and community. So I definitely feel you should do that. But then another thing is, if you notice that there's a brand out there and you haven't seen them, in, Black Enterprise, you haven't seen them in Essence, you haven't seen them in any of these, Savoy, any of these, magazines that we read as Black entrepreneurs, then really I would say, and believe me, you're missing out. Because let me tell you something. Black women and men are reading these magazines. This is where we go for information. This is where we go to pick what brands we are going to patronize with and which ones we are going to be loyal to. And if you're not in this magazine, you're a non-starter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the truth, and remember, this is a business relationship. These corporations are looking to you to bring the missing piece. And a lot of times the missing piece is your blackness, is your woman, your womanhood, is your manhood, is your whatever these things are, and so it's absolutely, within your right to say that, look, if I don't see you here, you're a non-starter. And not only that, even if I see you here, but the ad you choose to run still doesn't show me, you're definitely a non-starter. Because now I'm like, not only are you not even, going to hire someone to pose in front of this, this car that looks like me, but you're telling me that it's really not important to you. It really is all about money to you. And that's just not a brand I want to be, I want to partner. And so, these are things that you can tell them, and things that, like I said, at first they won't want to hear it, but at the end of the day, it's going to bring, increase their bottom line. And that's what you're there for. You're there to show them what they're missing.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously I have a podcast, and one of the biggest conferences is called Podcast Movement.
Yes.
And I haven't been, but last year, well, there's this thing, Podcast So White, predominantly white males, earning at least 70,000 a year and educated, all this kind of stuff, are predominantly not just podcast hosts, but podcast listeners, which makes sense. Mm-hmm. And one of my friends sent a tweet last year mentioning how Podcast Movement, the conference, didn't have any diversity in their speaker lineup. Mm-hmm. And they gave her a free ticket to come to the conference. And I was like, that's a great start. And I like, kudos to her all the way,
right.
Absolutely.
Kudos to her for calling them on it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it definitely works. But at the same time, I am hoping that even though I haven't attended, that they'll just carry on that process, right? Not just in my mind, I'm like, well, I hope they're just not throwing tickets at her.
Just like, shut up. Yeah. That's what you think. Yeah.
But to just be, conscious and active, like, okay, every year, what can we do to show, this diversity? Because I think that's important as well. And I know that's just one aspect of it, but.
And, a part of that too, is also the belief that, there has to be a white male face in order for something to be seen as reliable, trustworthy, all of these things. And so, her bringing that to their attention is also going to show them that, you're not going to get a lot of people like me in the room if I don't see myself represented. And, it's important to also realize, and I have to tell clients this all the time, some companies just don't want us there. So it's okay to say, you know what, this is just not a brand I want to partner with. No matter how much you want to be able to say, I'm sponsored by XYZ, if they really are not trying to embrace diversity, or trying to embrace, women, men, whatever it is, move on. Because at the end of the day, some people are just going to be comfortable sitting in a room with people who look like them. Mm-hmm. They don't want other people in the room, because to some people, that's a threat. What if you get in and now you're taking over and this isn't what, I want it to be, or whatever, there's always, people can always justify their narrow-mindedness, right. And so the thing is to look at these different opportunities and see what's genuine. I want to make this better, and what's just, I need you to just get off my feed, and be quiet. I'm gonna send you this ticket, and it sounds to me like they really want to engage with her, but understand that there are other companies that may not be the case. And I always tell, my clients, don't throw away your morals for the sake of, a few $1,000.
Right. Definitely. I know one thing I was talking about this morning was, last year I really had, excuse me, I really had to examine my core values, not just personally, but professionally as well. And I want my core values to match up with the clients or just in general, the business, the
Yes.
companies, clients that I plan on working with in the future, like, period.
Yes. Yes. And and saying no is okay.
Right.
Saying no is okay, because when you say no to something that doesn't fit, you're creating space for something that will.
Mm-hmm.
And so don't feel like you have to, it's just, I always say, just think back to when you first started, your business. You just want a client so bad, or you just want to get published so bad, or you just want to be, broadcast so bad. But at the end of the day, it won't go anywhere if it's not matching up with exactly what you said, Michelle, your morals, your values.
What is one of your favorite sponsorship success stories?
Oh, wow. Awesome. Let me see. My favorite sponsorship success stories. I'm going to say it's one of my clients was brand new to let me set the frame for you, because it's going to be confusing if I don't say this first. Okay, so she had been an entrepreneur pretty much her entire life. What she did was she owned a barbershop, and so that was her industry. And so as she got older, she watched a friend of hers help a family member who was diagnosed with cancer. And she saw all the medication and all of the different things that her, her friend had to navigate trying to help this family member. And so eventually her friend went to a homeopath uh, doctor and was put on medical marijuana. And they're out in California, so legalization is an issue for them. And so she decided right then and there that she was going to help. She was going to start a business to help other people who were chronically ill go through the process of getting approved for medical marijuana. So that became her business. And so, she had to not only learn the industry, she had to learn about medicine, she had to really like dive in. And so after like a year of studying and, helping a friend and doing all these things, she launched her business. And so she wanted to host an event for people who were dealing with chronic illnesses and things like that, and she wanted it to be completely sponsored. She was like, look, I do not have any money to really invest in this, but I definitely want to have this happen, because more and more we're hearing about people being diagnosed with different things. We're seeing more and more people be sick. And, there's this option. Medical marijuana is not going to work for everyone, but it's an option. And a lot of people aren't being told that it's an option. So we literally, within 3 months, not only did we plan her event, but we got it completely sponsored. She had celebrity chefs. She had gotten sponsored, of course, dollars, but she also received sponsorship in equipment and things like that, so that people, because what she was able to do was set up a simulation of what the testing looks like, what an actual, if you go into one of the locations for edibles, she set up a whole like a fake shop inside so that they could see, and this is how you look. And she had education, she had goods, she had services there, everything. So when everyone left her event, they had a game plan for how they could follow up with their primary care doctor, also to get referral and all the paperwork needed to get referrals, how they, could go into a shop and actually look and see what it is that they needed, and, what the equipment looked like, all of these different things. I mean, 3 months. Okay. And I consider that, like, to this day, one of the biggest success stories, because this is someone who literally, this was a whole new industry to her. And she did this, and she isn't on medical marijuana, but she was one of those people who just saw a need in her community and went for it. And she was 100% sponsored. I mean, no money out of her pocket, not a dime.
Dedication.
I'm telling you. And not only that, but just, again, it goes back to her morals. her whole mission for this was to bring education. And so when she spoke to, potential sponsors, whether it was for cash, whether it was for goods and services, that passion came through. And so people couldn't help but say yes, and it just really was an amazing, amazing event. She had people flying in. I mean, it was just amazing.
I know as a small business owner, especially from my experience as a marketer, when it comes to, there's so many pricing strategies, right?
Yes.
Have 3 packages, low,
Yes.
medium, high.
Yes.
What kind
Yes.
of pricing strategy should we be mindful when it comes to gaining sponsorships? And I know it can vary depending if it's an event versus a podcast or, whatever. But what are some tips when it comes to pricing strategies?
Okay. So the biggest thing is to, unless you're dealing with like a small business that's community based, meaning something like maybe an insurance agent or a realtor or something like that, unless it's that type of business, do not go with levels.
Okay.
Levels are done. Levels are done. Levels are only good for, people who may not have ever sponsored before, and they're like a solopreneur. Like I said, levels is done. Really what you want when you're trying to go for bigger sponsorship is to have a customized package for each of your potential sponsors. And so the reason why that works is because think about it. Think about how many, and I'll just keep using Visa. I don't know why they're top of mind, but I'll just keep using Visa. I must have saw a commercial or something. And so think about it. They get thousands a day of sponsorship requests. And so are you really saying that you want them to sit there and try to pick, what they want? That person doesn't have time for that. They want you to already come to them saying, hey, look, this is what you'll get. And, this is what we need from you. This is what we will do, as the sponsee. And bam, it's right there. And here's the thing. Once you've had the communication, because remember, you're not going to send these things out, cold. You will have already had a conversation with someone there. Once you have that conversation, they will tell you what it is they want. And then you write that up in your proposal and you give it right back to them. So it takes a lot of the, it takes a lot of the time and effort of coming up with the strategy out of it, because they will have already told you what they want. Okay, if you want to partner with Visa, this is what you need to do. This is what we need to see. This is what looks good to us. And then you put that up. You determine how much it's going to cost for you to do those things, in addition to whatever you need for your event, your show, whatever it is. And then that's what you pitch back to them. So, as a podcaster, for example, you may be willing to offer, commercials within your show. You may be able to offer, links back or special, links. I'll just say links to make it simple. Links back to their product or service that they're promoting right now on your page. You may be able to do all those type of things. But then in addition to that, maybe what you do is a special episode just dedicated to them, where your callers can call in and speak to them and get questions answered about, a relevant topic. Or what you can do is you can set it up so that you have a special group, you build up, and you have a special group and people can come in the group and engage with them, all these different things. You can offer as benefits, and then the pricing for that goes back to what it costs you to, one, deliver, on the sponsorship that you're, promising them, and then two, the funding that you need. So it's a two-prong approach. What does it cost me to do this for them, and then what do I need to make this, show, event, program go off without a hitch.
Through your experience, have you found a correlation between gaining sponsorship, especially when it comes to events, and public relations?
Absolutely. it's a it's a huge correlation, I'll say, for the business that's already launched. If it's a business that's launching, like let's say that, someone's coming out of the gate and they want sponsorship for their business launch, then, let me say it this way. If somebody is about to launch their business, they haven't launched yet, but they're still obtaining sponsors, then the PR is heavy because you've got to not only, educate people about this event, your product, your business, but you've got to also, get enough, momentum that your sponsors are also seeing a return. Right. But if you're already launched, and you already are communicating with your community, you're building, relationships with other entrepreneurs within your industry, then yes, you need to have a PR component, but it probably doesn't have to be quite as strong as someone who is coming, fresh and new that no one's ever heard of before. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think a lot of people underestimate PR.
Yes.
I also feel like with social media, the free mediums, social media platforms, everyone's like, oh, just post it. And they know the algorithm, not everyone sees your post, but, people have just gotten cheap and lazy when it comes to marketing.
Yes. And then, you have to remember too, and you raised an excellent point. When you're buying, yes, there is some buying going on Facebook, but by and large, think about the mindset of a buyer. First I see whatever this product is. Then I go do my research. I probably go to Amazon or Facebook or somewhere so I can see some reviews on it. Then I actually go buy it. So if you think about it that way, your job is to make sure as a sponsorship seeker is to make sure that they are coming, that, your community comes to you for the inside scoop on whatever this is, and that means that you're going to have to really put some power and some, momentum behind your PR, not just for you, because people need to trust you, but then in addition to trusting you, they need to now trust, your recommendation. And so a lot of times we need to understand, excuse me, that, it's not enough to post on Facebook. It's not enough to tweet. You need to actually have on and offline, public relations and media, because people aren't just consuming things one way.
Now, I've learned a lot from you in the past 40 something minutes, but what can people expect if they decide to work with you?
It's truly about understanding sponsorship in and out and all the different components that come with it. Like you said, there's a PR component, because if you think you're going to do anything without actually marketing, don't even waste your time. It's not happening. But then also there's a community, building aspect of it. There's, making the right connections within your industry with your colleagues, people that you may be looking at as competitors sometimes are your best allies when it comes to sponsorship, and so when working with me, I give you a really holistic approach to it. I'm not going to just say, okay, do 1, 2, 3, 4, go. No, I'm going to show you, I'm more of I always say this, I am more of a teach you how to fish type person, because if you're really planning on, running programs or running a podcast or hosting events, you really need to know how to do this, and not just do this once, but do it ongoing. And you need to know how to diversify your sponsorship, because one sponsor generally ain't going to do it. You need to have more than one, and they need to be across different industries, So it's really, I really seek to educate entrepreneurs about this industry because it's a $64 billion industry.
Wow.
And it increases by $2 billion each and every year. And this is even when we're in a recession. Because guess what? People have to market even more, in a recession. So I teach you how to basically recession-proof your business via sponsorship. And I do it so that you don't always need me. And I know, and my colleagues always say, oh my gosh, how can you say that? At the end of the day, I want you to be able to walk on your own, and be able to go out there and take over the world with your sponsorship. And I don't need to always be by your side to do it. I'm getting you ready so you can go out there and take over and you can be the next Oprah or whatever. I'm fine with that. You know?
Now, I've heard different things. I've heard some businesses, they do their budget in September, October.
Mm-hmm.
Is there ever a right time to approach a sponsor?
It really depends on the company. You're absolutely right. Some businesses, start taking a good hard look at their marketing budget, in September, October. Others are January is when their budgets go live. Others, over the summer because they're, anticipating the fall rush. Just really, I would say you want to try to give yourself at the very least 6 months if you are looking for any type of cash or high ticket. And by high ticket, I mean anything over, for cash, I'll say anything over $15,000, you probably want to give yourself a year. But anything under, like I'll say 14,000 and under, 6 to 8 months is good. And remember, a lot of this isn't about them making the decision. It's just because when you hand it off to Janet, she's then got to take it to all these different people to get a stamp before, that check gets cut. So understand, it's not about, when your event is happening. It's about how long it's going to take within that corporation to get things going. Think about how long it takes to get somebody to sign off on a training request somewhere. Some corporations that can take months.
Yeah.
So, you got to think about, from her perspective or his perspective, whoever your contact is within the company, how long, generally speaking, is going to take them to get it up their management chain to the decision maker who's going to actually be willing to say, yes, send that money over.
And the money's in the follow-up, people.
I'm telling you, sponsorship doesn't happen if you don't follow up. Truly, it does not happen if you don't follow up. So you absolutely need to follow up. And, it's like I said, it's always best to have an ally on the inside. So, let your very first conversation be, finding out what it is they even want. Because you may realize, in that conversation that, what, this is just not something I'm in a position to do, or, what, yeah, I just don't even want to do that, but have those conversations first, because then you have an ally inside, and then what the landscape is going to look like for you when dealing with that company.
God, I really appreciate your insight. How can people get in touch with you as well as your Facebook group?
Sure. So the best thing to do is to go to take my free mini course. It really, that really sets the stage. And within that course, you get the link, of course, to the Facebook group. And not only that, but you get resources to help you get started, to even, kind of dip your toe in to see if you even want to deal with sponsorship, because it really is, it becomes part of your business. And so that course is, if you go to, you can go to www.sponsorshipminicoursealtogether.com, just sponsorshipminicourse.com, all the words together. And, from there, it really helps you, learn the foundations of sponsorship, how to start. And within 5 days, you can have your first sponsor.
Hey, now
I set it up like that so that you can literally have your first sponsor in 5 days, because it's really like a snowball rolling downhill. Once you get that snow packed and you start rolling, it's going to take off. So, every sponsor you get, you can leverage for the next one, for the next one. So truly, it's a great way to get started, to figure out, what it is you want. And not only that, but to really take a look and see things from the sponsor side, so that you know how to speak with confidence when you have these conversations with them.
I love it.
Thank you.
Last question.
Okay, go for it.
You probably already answered this with your free mini course.
Okay.
But what is one action item that we can implement today in our business?
One action item that you can implement today, every single week, seek to make one corporate connection, one new corporate connection. Every single week. And it doesn't have to be huge. It can be taking someone to, for coffee. It can be, doing that 5-minute conversation over coffee. It could be, just reaching out on LinkedIn and, getting on the phone. Because here's the thing, it's a lot easier when you have a relationship that's already being developed than to start cold.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's why networking, right?
I'm telling you, best thing you could do. I'm telling you.
All right, everyone. We appreciate Quiana for the wealth of information she has provided. Remember, I believe in you, and a personal connection leads to an influential network. Thanks for networking with Michelle.